Okay, good afternoon. My name is Eider Hidalgo Montaño. I am a student of the program of bachelor degree in foreign languages with emphasis in English from UNAT. Right now, I'm going to develop activity 1 or task 1 from the course of foreign language acquisition and learning. Respective tutor Diego Fernando Vargas Lopez. This is the reflection I can take about the first activity or the text number 1. Right, in the text number 1, we need to read some documents, acuerdos, en lineamientos from the uh, práctica pedagógica educativa. And I consider that all this information is really, really important for us as a student of this program because we need to know what are the rules, what are the norms, sorry, what are the laws that we need to understand and we need to know that are in context with the pedagogical practice as English teacher or teacher in training. Right in the activity 1, we need to define or need to describe what is the foreign language acquisition and learning. And the description I already shared, or I'm going to share with you in my work, is the foreign language acquisition and learning is a methodological and theoretical and practical course which belongs to the program of bachelor degree in foreign language from the UNAT. And it has 2 academic credits, and at the same time it's composed by 2 units which are foreign language acquisition and from the theory to the practice, and the second one is learning trends in foreign language. So by other hand, it's important to highlight that this course is divided in 3 phases, which are related to develop student pedagogical skills like observation, immersion, and investigation. The total of hours the student must develop in these phases are 32 hours. Finally, in the course description, I want to take into account the learning outcomes which are linked to the course activities, and they try to seek to strengthen student skill for the teaching of a foreign language using appropriate methodologies involving the use of ICT and within the teaching process and applying effective form of evaluation, right? So now I'm going to make a short description about the phases in foreign language acquisition and learning. Remember, as I told you before, there are 3 phases that we need to take into account when we are working on foreign language acquisition and learning. The phase number 1, in the phase number 1, the student is going to do an observation work. And this observation work is distributed in 8 hours of observation practice and 2 hours in material development, and that there are 3 hours that are distributed in ESAPEC, that is the simulator. Right in the phase number 2, so a student must develop 8 hours in observation practice and finally 2 hours in material development. On the phase number 3, a student must develop 3 hours for ESAPEC, 3 hours for e-portfolio, and 3 hours for simulated scenario, right? The next step we need to talk about is identify each chapter of Acuerdo Reglamento de Prácticas Pedagógicas y Educativas and the article it has, all right? And as I, according to this document, I could find that the Acuerdo Reglamento de Prácticas Pedagógicas y Educativas has 9 chapters that are conformed by 24 articles which are based on the agreement 078 from March 29th. So from 2022, and they are distributed as the following way. Chapter 1 is about the definition and purpose. In this chapter, it has 2 articles, which are Article 1, that is definition, and Article 2, that is purpose. Okay, the next chapter, that is chapter 2, is talking about generalities and definition. This chapter has the following articles. Has Article 3, that is talking about the practical component. Article 4, that is the pedagogical and educational practice. Article 5, that is the nature and affairs of the practical component courses. Article 6, teacher in training. Article 7, it is about formative road of pedagogical of educational practice. The next chapter is chapter number 3. That is the curricular aspect of the formative road of pedagogical and educational practice. This chapter has the following articles. Article 8, which are the prerequisite. Article 9 is the course registration. Article 10 is about the course of the formative road of pedagogical and educational practice. Article 11 is about the homologation of the courses of the formative road of pedagogical and educational practice. In Article 12, it is about the work experience that is talking about the work experience is not going to be taken as a part of the pedagogical practice, right? Well, in this case, I just want to give you my personal opinion because I'm a student and right now I'm studying because I want to get the bachelor degree as English teacher. But I have been teaching English for 13 years. And I consider that if you have the experience teaching English in different spaces, in my case, for example, I have taught English in different cities, in different kind of institutions, public and private schools. So I consider that National University and the Ministry of Education from Colombia have to take into account this important point, because if you have experience, it's important that maybe you get a diagnosis or analyze if you have the component you need in order to be an English teacher, right? But it's just my personal opinion. In the next chapter, that is chapter 4, so we find principle of action of the teacher in training of pedagogical practice. In this chapter, we only find the following article, and the article is Article 14, that is talking about the principle of action of pedagogical practice, right? So the next chapter is chapter number 5, and chapter number 5 is talking about the definition of the academic network of pedagogical and educational practice. It only has one article, that is Article 15. Article 15 is about the academic network of pedagogical and educational practice actors, right? Chapter number 6, we find the pre-practice seminar that has 2 articles, which are Article 16, that is assignment of pedagogical and educational practice scenarios, and the Article 7, that is about practice seminar. The next chapter is chapter 7, that is talking about monitoring and evaluation of educational pedagogical practice. This chapter is composed by the following articles. Article 18, that is learning assessment. Article 19, that is about evaluation of pedagogical and educational practice. And Article 20, that is about grounds for failings the educational pedagogical practice course, right? The next chapter is chapter 8, that is talking about the duties and rights of undergraduate teachers in training in the development of their pedagogical practice. This chapter has the following article. Article 21, that is about duties of the teacher in trainings, and Article 22, that is about the rights of the teacher in training. All right, and the last chapter of this document is chapter 9, that is talking about the certification of pedagogical and educational practice. These chapters contains Article 23, that is about practice as an area for teacher in training, and the last article that is talking about all these regulation apply from their approval. All right, so that is the first document, that is Acuerdos Lineamiento the pedagogical and educational practice. And so that is the main information included in the 9th chapter in the 24 articles, right? The next step in the activity we were doing is that identify the main information of the document of lineamientos para el desarrollo de la práctica pedagógica y educativa. And we need to include different information like the following. The first information that we can find in this document are the normative references. In the normative references, we can see the different laws, the different decrees and resolution which determine the condition for education in Colombia. Remember that education is divided in several sections. There are primary, secondary, so we can say that is basic education, but then we have higher education, that is the education which a university and other institution brings. Okay, so which are the main reference that we need to take into account when we are talking about education in Colombia? The first one is Law 115. I don't know if I said that, or 115 from 1994. That is the Education General Law, which regulate basic and health education. Right? Another important reference is Law 30 from 1994 too, which regulate the higher education. And it is important to highlight that in 2008, the Law 1188 generates the reform of the quality criteria for higher education program from the discussion about the Colombian educational system. From this point and on, several resolutions and reformation were created in order to improve and define the quality of the higher education program, including degrees and others. Some of them, for example, and I'm going to mention some, are Resolution 5443 from 2010. Resolution 6996 from 2010, which give emphasis to pedagogical practice. Then we find Decree 1295 from 2010, and it repeals the previous resolution. So after that, we can find Decree 2450 from 2015, and it rules the condition to give and renew the certification for degrees focused in education. Then we find Decree 1075 from 2015, and it was added by Decree 2450. After that, we can find Resolution 2041 from 2016, and then we can find Resolution 1858-3 from 2017, and this is all the norms or laws, decrees, and resolution student from bachelor degree in foreign languages with emphasis in English we need to take into account, right? Because these are the laws we regulate or rule or our process in our studies at the university on this program. All right. Okay. The next step that we are going to find in the document. Well, I would like to mention some important aspects. I consider is a little bit difficult. For that reason, I'm just going to take some information from my document in order to highlight this important information. And this important information is the Ministry of National Education on July 25 in 2019 through Decree 1330 replaced Chapter 2 and deletes Chapter 7 of Title 3 of Part 5 of the Book 2 of Decree 1075 of 2015, sole regulation of the education sector. In that decree, establishing the new quality criteria for obtaining registration qualify from higher education academic programs, and Resolution 21795 of the November 19, 2020, by which the self-assessment parameters are established, verification and evaluation of the regulated program quality condition in Decree 1075 of 2015. It was modified by Decree 1330 of 2019 for the obtaining, modifying, modifying and renewing the qualified registration. With this last regulation, the pedagogical practice and the investigation are strengthened as fundamental parts in the formation of degrees according to guidelines for the development of educational pedagogical practice. Okay, so it is important to highlight this because this is the information which is or what is going to help us to understand why it is really important the pedagogical practice when you are studying a career or a program like bachelor degree in foreign languages, and all the regulation we need to take into account for this process. Okay, the next step that we are going to find in this document is principle of action of teacher in training in pedagogical and educational practice, right? And which are those principles? Those principles are: number one, integrality of teaching pedagogical practice. Number two, dialogue between educational actors. Number three, promotion of protective environment for children and teenagers. Number four, respect for the differences. And number five, excellence in service. If I am or if you are studying to be a bachelor degree in foreign language, is important when you are doing your pedagogical practice. Take into account all these principles because you are a representative from UNAT, from the National University Open and Distance. And as a representative, you need to have a good behavior. You need to be an excellent teacher doing your job, and lifting the image of the university and your own image very high. Okay, for that reason, it's important we take into account all these principles when we are talking about pedagogical practice. Okay, the next step or the next information we are going to find in the second document, lineamientos for practical pedagogical practice, is the degree programs in ESEDU and their definition. Then it is important that the degree programs in ESEDU from UNAT are divided in two groups, right? There are some programs which are in transition, and there are some programs we have a renew register, right? We can find from programs in transition degree in pedagogical or early childhood pedagogy. We can find education degree, and we can find degree in mathematics, right? In the programs with renewed register, we can find education degree. We can find degree in philosophy. We can find degree in mathematics and bachelor degree in foreign languages with emphasis in English. All right. So the definition is about this. For example, the bachelor degree in early childhood pedagogy is professional, or this program trains professional leaders in early childhood education with high research, pedagogical, and didactic performance and with skills to interact with diverse childhood from an inclusive education perspective. The degree in ethno-education, the bachelor degree in ethno-education is a program that trains scholastics in the ethno-education under the principle of education in diversity. So professionals who transform reality, who incorporate in an articulating a scenario of the environment of open and distance education, right? The degree in mathematics is presented as a program that aims at training educators who are knowledgeable about their context with a skill in teaching mathematics from a didactic, pedagogical, and technological perspective. This program is designed with emphasis on the training of professionals from the pedagogical and didactical perspective with a pertinent disciplinary foundation from applied mathematics and statistics, complemented by humanistic and investigative components. Okay? So the degree in philosophy is important to highlight. The university has more than 20 years teaching this important program. And this program is aimed to develop professional skills as human capacity that contribute to the construction of new meanings and practices in the Colombian education, culture, and social development scenarios. All right? All this with the purpose to contribute to the sustainable construction of peace in the different territories in Colombia. Okay, the next program is the degree in foreign languages with emphasis in English. That it is a program of the School of Education of the Science which allows UNAT to enhance the internationalization process while glimpse a Colombian teacher capable of creatively responding to the different needs that arise from the professional exercise of teaching English in multiple contexts at a national, international level, right? The degree in foreign languages with emphasis in English from the National Open and Distance University clearly involves the development of communicative linguistic skill in the language, identifying the development of knowledge, skills, and attitude from the following axes of formation. The synapses are first, self-learning. Self-learning is important when you are learning foreign languages because it's not only the lesson you take in the class, it's not only the lesson the teacher explained in the class, but it's important to understand that if you want to develop or if you want to improve your English level, according to the different skill, it's important you do self-learning because you need to get vocabulary, you need to get grammar, you need to develop the skills like listening and speaking, and the only way you can do that is when you do self-learning as an essential component for the development of each of the activity program in the different academic years. Second axis is high content in the use of information and communication technology. Today or up to date, so teachers need to know about communication technology because we are in a technology world now. In this century, it's really important to be involved with communication and technologies, right? Especially if you are going to be a degree in any discipline, or especially if you are going to be a degree in a foreign language, because of the cultures around the world, because it's important to be up to date and all this information. All right, number 3 axis is the research as a transversal axis in the learning process. Every teacher, every student must be a scientist. Must be a scientist. A scientist. For that reason, it's important the researching. So we need to investigate because learning is changing all the time, right? And many information is going to appear with the pass of the time. So we need to be up to date in that information, and the only way we can be up to date with the information about technology, about languages, about the new trends of teaching methodologies, approaches, or something like this. If we constantly are doing a researching process, the investigation process is important for be up to date. And the number 4 is the virtual methodology that allow access to distant population where there is no possibility mobilizing to the different educational institutions of a higher level. So there's an advantage from UNAT or National University Open and Distance, because when you have the opportunity to work from the distance through the virtual spaces, so you can reach more people around the world. You can have a wider how can I say interscope, and that is going to be great for yourself. Okay, so that is the first part of the document. Now I'm going to talk about the road of the pedagogical and educational practice of the degree in foreign languages with emphasis in English, which is in the document. All right. It's important to talk about this, that is divided in three sections. The first section is about observation, and the second section is about immersion, and the last one is about investigation. Okay. The step number 5 is about the practice seminar. That is a seminar that is important to do before start our pedagogical and educational practices, because it gives us the opportunity to know which are going to be our leaders, which are going to be the tools we need to take into account when we are doing the pedagogical and educational practice. And it is really important to know about this. Okay. And the last one is the ESAPEC, or ESAPEC, that is a strategy of face-to-face accompaniment of the school educational science. Right? It was created with the purpose of respond to the quality criteria required by pedagogical practice and educational. This strategy consists of a number determined synchronous accompaniment to group of student practitioners in interaction of the teacher and the teacher of accompaniment of practice of the SEDU of each course. Okay, so that is ESAPEC. Sorry for reading a little bit about this, is a lot of information, and it's important to be clear when we are talking about the different definition of this aspect. And the last one is the teaching and educational practice simulator. So this simulator is an academical tool that allows students to propose and carry out simulated pedagogical and didactical practices. Okay, teacher, this is step number 5 about the video clip talking about our work. Remember, my name is Eider Hidalgo, and that is all the information we need to share on this video clip. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless you and have a nice day. Bye bye.